Hey, everybody. It's time for some comedy film nerds.
It is. A day late, but not $1 short.
Not $1 short.
Mm-hmm.
I notice normally we release on Tuesdays, guys, but our guest, she was testing for a pilot, for a sitcom television pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or she had Wicked tickets.
She had Wicked tickets. That was really, she had a Tuesday matinee to see Wicked. Okay.
Yeah, well,
it's good. Wicked is good.
She lied about it. Mm-hmm. She's a filthy liar. Well, that's our episode. Let's wrap it up. Let's put it in the books.
Last time one of my guests canceled recently, and they were objectively lying. And then later they kind of confessed that they were lying, and it was funny to me because it was the traffic. The traffic is so bad. And then what it was it was more her lunch took too long. And also, that's how excited she was to be on my podcast. She was like, I'm on my way to this podcast. Let me stop off for lunch.
Yeah. Let me talk about for a 90-minute to 2-hour lunch.
Can you imagine if it was completely thought out, and then I'll stop off for lunch and then blame the traffic, like it was all a premeditated cancel?
It could have been.
That's how sociopaths operate.
Yeah.
Well, we are in show business.
I'm going to eat myself out of this show.
I know a number of sociopaths, so that's fine.
Well, I want to thank everyone who came out to see me in Altus, Oklahoma, at the Altus, Oklahoma Air Base. We had some Kitten fans there. There was a fan in the audience, which was very cool. And some people who were there like, oh, wow, I've never heard of your podcast. I want to start listening. Altus, Oklahoma is in the middle of nowhere. But, you know, they've got a Holiday Inn Express. They've got a Whataburger. They've got an Applebee's that we ate at twice because we got snowed in and we're stuck there. And then and then our show in Texas got canceled. Shane Moss, who's been on the show, put something very funny on Twitter. He goes, don't mess with Texas. Unless they get an inch of snow, then they can't handle shit. Like, the whole state shuts down. I'm like, you know, in whatever, Wisconsin, this is nothing. This is like, there's plows everywhere and everything's taken care of, but none of it. They're just like...
That's like spring anywhere else.
They're just like, they were like, we can't handle it. But it was a very fun show in Altus, Oklahoma. So thank you to everybody that came out to.
You know why they don't like snow? It reminds them of science.
Yeah, they get afraid of science. That's probably a viable reason. So that was a lot of fun. Thanks to everyone who came out in that. It's episode 258, and. Why don't we introduce our guest, who was on, I'd say, a year or two ago?
Yeah, it's been a while. Not a new guest. But a return guest, but hasn't been on in a while.
Not a well-enjoyed guest, I guess. It's been a little bit of time. Yeah.
And he spent a little bit of time.
Well-liked.
Don't enjoy his company, and we had to scramble to get a guest today, so...
Not a good friend, and
he was not testing for a pilot today.
No.
And he did not have Wicked tickets.
I did get some tests done today. Good news, guys. Nothing too serious. Hey, a little bit of trivia, by the way.
First of all, ladies and gentlemen, that's the wonderful voice of longtime friend Jim Bruce.
Hey, everybody. It's very good to hear you. Hey, a little bit of trivia, guys. What's your favorite venereal disease?
I'm
going to tell you what mine is, and then that's how people get to know me really quick. My favorite is chlamydia. Now, ask me why.
Why?
Totally curable. And if you want, you can ask me how I know that, or you could just leave it alone.
I'd like to leave it alone.
Yeah, let's leave it alone.
I prefer to leave it alone. I'm going to write down time code, because maybe we're going to cut that out.
That's a bonus.
It's a bonus edit.
It is a bonus edit. Bonus edit.
Oh, there should be a lot of those in this episode.
That's going to be great. Yeah, give me a lot of extra work to do.
Yeah.
So, Jim, you're
going to be really glad we got a guest last minute now, as you're cutting the episode into pieces. This was a great idea.
Last week, it was just Chris and I, because we were just doing the Oscars. Our guest couldn't. It was like a guest issue last week, but we just wanted to talk Oscars anyway.
Yeah.
So we're like, we can't do that 2 weeks in a row. And now we got Johnny Weirdo here. So now, we
The whole episode is going to be our guest is Jim Bruce, and good night, everybody.
You just got to edit out all your nonsense. So you have a podcast. Tell our fans that I've been on twice.
You've been on twice. You were great. And this, by the way, is what it's like to know Graham. So he was on our podcast twice. The second time he was on the podcast, he still didn't know where he was going, and he didn't remember he'd been on the podcast before when he showed up. And Graham's got a great memory for many things, but just for some reason he was like, how does this show work? Well, first of all, it's a podcast, so the answer is it doesn't work. But
who are you again?
But then when it came to comedy, Graham delivered. It was hilarious. You're a great guest. It's a fun little show. It's called Who's This Now? We're on Libsyn and we're on iTunes and all that nonsense, or our Twitter feed, which is basically my co-host Tom vaguely getting connected to the rest of the world and being angry that he has to do it. But he's the guy who handles the Twitter feed Who's This Now on Twitter. It's a funny little show. I have two guests. The first guest is Graham. The second guest is always an improvised guest that the comedian doesn't know about till they get there.
Which I love. And
that's a great format.
It's a great format. And it's one of the things I love about podcasting is, okay, you create whatever you want. And the two times it's just like, I love getting shit thrown at me.
Do you remember both times?
Kinda. I'm a guest on a lot of podcasts. I know. It's a lot. It's not fair. I mean, I've been to Jim's house before, but I vaguely remember the street that he lives on. But
what I like about the show is when we thought of the show, we really wanted a format, and I don't say that lightly because there are a lot of podcasts that think it's awesome to have no format whatsoever.
And it's funny because the shows that when I talk to young comics or whatever on the road and they're like, I want to do a podcast. We're just going to just talk. And I'm like, there's a bunch of very good seasoned professionals that already have that down really well.
Yeah.
Chris Hardwick and Jimmy Pardo and Mark Maron. These people are very skilled at just sitting around and talking. And so if you're not on their level,
come back in 20 years.
Yeah. Come back in 20 years or come up with a cool format.
Yeah. That's different.
That has a topic you really want to talk about.
I love telling the Night Vale story where that's exactly what they did. They're like, well, what is Pod World missing? They took 8 months and studied what was there, what wasn't there, what they wanted to do before they even released one episode.
Yep.
And that's pretty awesome. The other thing we don't do on our show, and this was just because we're on a fictional network, and apparently we're a big success because we have a very big staff. But there's no cursing on our show. We bleep cursing because the networks require it. And we put all these things on top of ourselves that limit us, but also force us to be creative.
Yes.
Limitation is one of the greatest drivers of creativity. You think about George Lucas. George Lucas was much more creative when he had less money.
Yeah.
And it's true of all people. Mel Brooks, it was much funnier when things were more limited and people hated Jews more.
Yeah.
That's just the driving force of comedy, and not even just comedy, but drama is constraint. The best, fiction, you think about your favorite superhero movie, it is not the superpowers, it's what the character cannot do that makes it a movie.
That is a great point, and I think specifically to comedy, and it's something we've talked about so many times on this show, but you really put it succinctly, which is...
Well, play that for me later, because I don't do that very often.
Graham didn't write down time code for that.
Yeah, it was good. Actually, that made the cut, fucko.
You have to bleep it on my show.
But no, we talk about why comedy sequels are so hard is because the first one had a limited budget, had constraints, and they did so many great things with it. Then the second one, it's you guys are the rainmakers, do whatever you want, and that's on and on. I mean,
Well, Seinfeld said the enemy of comedy is success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Rewatch the first Austin Powers.
Right.
Rewatch it and you see a brilliant, it's still a broad comedy, but it's a brilliant broad comedy. And the things that he's satirizing, first of all, he's satirizing things that I guarantee you most people don't get. Because he's satirizing not James Bond.
Sean Connery.
Yeah.
James Bond.
Yeah, he's not even satirizing James Bond.
Really?
He's satirizing English spy movies that his father loved. It's a love project because his father had just passed away. He's satirizing movies I never saw, but it's so funny. And a little bit of James Bond, of course.
Right.
But really, he's satirizing those like Dapper Dan kind of movies that had nothing to do with James Bond.
Right. Yeah, and he's also satirizing a specific era in England and in English cinema.
Right.
Which is really awesome. And then as the sequels, he's just like, it's all
broader
just,
and broader.
Yeah, it's just, hey, baby. You know, like that's all it is just wacky.
Yeah.
But like that's a great point. That first dance number.
Perfect.
Is on the first time I saw it in the theaters, and he's like, "It's my."
The crowd went nuts.
I know. It's like my scene, and it knocks me out. I was like, "Oh my god, this is awesome!"
And it was awesome in so many different ways. Because yes, it was funny, but on top of that, it was joyous.
Right.
It was unrestrained joy. Whereas the sequels, the second one, I'll say all of them have funny moments. He's a talented man, and I'm not a hater, but there's so many by the numbers things where the joy is just kind of sucked out. Because at that point, we're making money, and money's great, but at that point, there's very little artistic.
And there's no surprises in any of the sequels.
And,
yeah, baby. What?
Yeah, exactly. But that's funny too. Is you can tell when a movie. Or specifically with comedy or like a TV show, you can tell when the writers and everybody are in a room falling out of their chairs going, "Oh, dude, you got to put that in there," versus crank it out, hit this beat, hit that beat, because whatever, this is a franchise now or anything like that. You can just tell when that happens, and that happens on a lot of shows. It happens on late night talk shows. It happens on the sitcoms. It happens on everything because.
Do you watch Letterman?
I haven't in a while.
Letterman's good again.
Because he knows he's leaving.
And exactly.
No, exactly.
100% the thing. That's exactly what I was going to say. He's leaving, and not only can he just do what he wants, but he realizes how lucky he is to be doing comedy. He'll miss it. So that kind of sadness is redirected. Letterman's always been a sad fellow, which is why I love the guy, but now it's redirected in the right direction again.
Well, one of the reasons when he said that he gave for retiring, he goes, I came home one day and my wife goes, how was the show? And he goes, he couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Because he's done so many.
I didn't even know what we did. And that sort of endless, but then, like everything coming to an end and then and relishing it and having gratitude for it.
I saw Jay Leno I've seen Jay Leno on 3 or 4 interviews since he left the Tonight Show. And he did this very weird thing where he was amusing and enjoyable. He was wholly enjoyable.
Right.
He wasn't the old Jay Leno, because the old Jay Leno was a young man. He'll never be that again.
Right.
Because you come out on the other side of that and you are an old man. But he's a funny dude again. And he's not constrained by,
trying to be America's favorite comic. Like he was so
trying to live up to that hype.
Trying to live up to that, like I'm,
the favorite of 60-year-olds everywhere.
Yeah, middle America loves me, and I got to be Johnny Nice and Mr. Next door neighbor, as opposed to his early comedy had some real bite to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you look at what the Tonight Show became, it was every obvious joke was made on that show.
Yeah,
like the old joke writing lesson is like when you write a joke. You write the first thing that comes to your mind, throw that away, and then write the second thing.
Yeah.
You could tell that's not what they were doing. The first obvious joke is every time that's what they were doing.
Yeah, in fact, I would be willing to bet they did exactly what you're saying. I bet they did throw the first joke away, but what they did is they went, okay, edge it more towards the middle.
Yeah. Easy. Too rough. That's too easy. That's too rough. That's got too much of a bite to it. Because those people interviewed be like, well, Dave Letterman's too mean or whatever. It's like, okay. But let's bring it. But yeah, let's get into some films.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Seventh Son. I have to talk about this film, and this is the Retribution screening that I had to go see.
Retribution
after. You went to see Project Almanac. So I went to see Seventh Son, and this was a fascinating film. It was one of those movies that you knew was going to be bad just from the release schedule alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when something's shelved for so long and then gets thrown into a theater in February.
The movie poster looks like one of those movies back in the day when you would walk through a like Blockbuster back when that was a thing.
Right.
And you'd see it and go, what the hell's this?
Yeah, when did this come out?
Jeff Bridges?
Yeah.
When is this?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, if you want to watch Jeff Bridges do a medieval sketch character for an hour and a half, this is the movie for you. It's like he's doing this really weird accent and like talking about all the history and the evil in the world and by the power of Grayskull. It was like so ridiculous. And half the time you couldn't understand what he was saying because he had this weird, sketchy speech affectation. And the rest of the movie, I will say this, you could tell a lot of money went into this movie in all the wrong places. That was what's so fascinating. It's got... You know, Julianne Moore is in this movie, and you're thinking, well, you know, now after Still Alice, and I'm thinking, you know, gosh, she probably wants to forget that she made that movie.
Well, it's like Seventh Son and Jupiter Ascending are like, have all these Oscar winners in them.
Yeah.
You must all just be like, oh, fuck.
Why did they have to release them right before the Oscars?
Guys, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Eddie Redmayne's in Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, God.
So this movie, and it's all about, you know, the apprentice that has to help fight evil. He's the grizzled, you know, he's the mentor. And it makes very little sense. They're fighting witches, but witch seems to be a very broad term in this world. Like, the witches are now shapeshifters, monsters, people that actually do magic, but it could be anybody that's as anything related to magic or spells. It doesn't even matter. It's like the traditional
which, by the way,
thing.
relates back to what we started the conversation out with. One of the reasons this movie sounds terrible is because there are no limitations. There are no rules.
There's nothing. And
Magic's the hardest thing to write. Magic is a difficult thing to write and be interesting because you have to put borders around it or it's nothing.
Yeah. Exactly. And you have to have, even like there were parts in Harry Potter where those are very well thought out and a world with rules and all those, the way that the magic worked. But even then there was a couple times, well, wait, if this is this part, then what, I don't know if that actually, you know, what was that thing about Horcruxes again? But there's, you're right. It's anytime when you have magic, it is a very difficult thing. I mean, Tolkien, I think, did a really nice job with it as far as like when creating the world and what are the rules of the magic and the races and the rings and all those things. Now, this movie, basically, it has a lot of good actors, a lot of very attractive actors in it, and a lot of really nice-looking special effects. And all those things. Basically, this is a medieval eye candy. Basically, fantasy eye candy with little to zero story depth, character. Anything that you would want to see in a movie is not there in this film, with the exception of if you want to go see an effects reel. Right. Or if you want to see Julianne Moore hamming it up. But what's funny, too, is like when you've got these great actors and actresses like you know, Jeff Bridges and Julianne Moore, and you know, there's occasional someone from Game of Thrones shows up in one scene. You know, there's all these also
probably because they had the costume on.
Yeah, exactly. They were already shooting there. So you also see like you know, there's like these little, you know, bit parts that are filled, but that, you know, they spent some money on as well. The worst part about watching a movie like this is you can tell that no one's having any fun. Like, you could even tell, as you're watching, like, Jeff Bridges and Julianne Moore and all these actors, you could tell they're literally, when is this over? Can I just finally finish this movie?
Is this lunch?
Yeah.
Are we at lunch yet?
Yeah, so, you know, but when you have, like, these movies should be fun. Even if they're not great, they still should be fun. Like, a good example is, like when you have a big star in like Paddington, when Nicole Kidman played this evil taxidermist, she could tell she was having an absolute blast. She loved being in that film, and it was a fun role. But here, it's like, what's the paycheck? How long is it going to be? Can I do a funny voice? Yes. Can I do a funny voice? And
I don't want any prosthetic makeup.
I don't want to. But it's also one of those movies where one scene doesn't match the other scene with the magic rules, like that kind of thing. Like it's like, well, you know, now I'm you know the rules, and now that you have to follow them. So, okay. And then the next scene is like, well, I'm leaving. You're on your own. You can do whatever you want. Wait, that's not just what you said in the scene before. It's those great scenes where like every editor must have gotten a scene and they didn't really match together.
Nobody talked to
each other, that kind of thing. Now, there is one point I want to make before we move on about Seventh Son and Jupiter Ascending. These are both high-budget disasters that both came out in February, but the takeaway from studios is always wrong. Like, everyone would say, oh, Jupiter Ascending, see, big-budget movies that are supposed to be, creative and not based on an existing property, they're going to fail. Well, guess what? Seventh Son is based on a series of books.
Sure.
So it's completely irrelevant what the source material is. Yeah. All you have to do is make a compelling, good film. It has nothing to do with what it's based on.
It's weird that this movie didn't do well because it was directed by Sergei Bodrov, who's done such classics as A Yakuza's Daughter Never Cries, 42-1 Dream Rush, Nomad the Warrior, Mongol, The Rise of Genghis Khan, Bear's Kiss, The Quickie, Running... Like, who the fuck... This guy is the most amazing... He's been doing big-budget films for 20, 30 years.
I'd be surprised if he speaks English.
Not at all. I mean, they must have shot this in Bulvania.
Oh, yeah. Definitely it's the Bulvanian picture.
It's like... you look at this, and it's like one of those guys, if you watch any type of professional sports, and one of those shitty coaches that keeps getting rehired, and like, this fucking guy's never even been to the goddamn Super Bowl.
Right.
How the fuck does he keep getting... these movies are just...
He keeps failing upward. Yeah, and now he can put on his resume, worked with Jeff Bridges, and
Jeff Bridges will not have.
Jeff Bridges will not put this on his resume. There's no question.
Hollywood always takes away the wrong message, though.
It's very true. It's very true.
Mind-numbingly frustrating. And this movie hasn't come out yet, and maybe it will be great. I doubt it, but it could be. I'm sure you've seen the trailer for the Fantastic Four, the reboot of the Fantastic Four.
Yes.
There's an example.
Fantastic Four babies?
Yeah, exactly.
Real quick, the budget on this movie, $95 million, according to IMDb, and it grossed its opening weekend about $17 million.
Yes, that's actually being generous. I'm surprised
sure it'll make its money back
overseas. It will just clean up.
Some of it will definitely make it back overseas. There's no question. But it's the kind of movie, too, it's like, if you're going to spend that much money, have some kind of supervision on the film. Like it's one of those movies where you're like, how are we still doing this in 2014 and 2015 where these crazy big budget movies are just such complete disasters from start to finish? Like, why is that still happening?
4 writers. That's always a good sign. All
friends with the director that doesn't speak English, most likely.
Yeah, it's 4 writers. 3 writers.
And one guy, probably the book guy, probably got a credit that he'd probably like to remove.
Yeah, right. Joseph Delaney, and he has it in parentheses, inspiration. So I bet you he went, put inspiration, because that's not my shit those guys did.
I would not be surprised at all.
But Jim, what were you saying about the upcoming Fantastic Four?
Well, you look at the upcoming Fantastic Four as a perfect example of, I think, Hollywood learning the wrong lesson, which is, if you've seen it, it's very dark and brooding, and that's the lesson they learned from Batman. But that's the wrong lesson to learn from Batman. The right lesson to learn from Batman is, hey, let's look at the character and what this character deserves on the screen as far as the best expression of this character.
And stay true to its roots.
Whereas the Fantastic Four should be campy, should be bright. It should be futuristic. It should be gleaming towers. That's the right thing to do.
Right.
The right thing to do is almost to make the wrong Batman. You know what I mean?
Well, they're two different animals. It's we'll Batman up the Fantastic Four. No, that's exactly what you shouldn't do. Like when they Batmaned up Spider-Man, the last one. Like, no, that's exactly what you shouldn't do. And they Batmaned up Superman in the last one. Oh, okay, well then let's also take away his ability to speak. Perfect.
None of that makes sense.
These characters are bright, like you said, they're bright, more hopeful, the opposite of Batman.
So really, the truth is just, what story are you trying to tell? That's it. It's such a dumb, simple thing. It feels idiotic to say it out loud, because I'm not saying anything, and yet they don't understand.
I'm curious to know what this new Fantastic Four movie is about, because as we talked about, for the most part, the Marvel movies have been great. You know,
Right.
we said this.
Yes.
We've said this at great length on the show. So I watched that Fantastic Four trailer on its own. I kind of feel like you a little bit, Jim. Like, what are they doing? But then the recent history has shown me that most of the Marvel movies are pretty solid.
This isn't a Marvel movie. No. This is, I think that somebody else still has the rights to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so if you, the last couple of movies made for the X-Men, I thought were really great.
Yes.
I happen to enjoy First Class. I enjoyed, what was it, Apocalypse? What the hell was it called? I don't care. But I liked the last two. They were good.
Right. Days of Future Past.
Days of Future Past. This one, I read an interview with the director who compared it a little bit to The Fly. He said it's a little bit like The Fly in the way that we handle the transformation. And I find that both interesting
This
and
is 20th Century Fox.
concerning. Interesting and concerning, because that is interesting to say, all right, instead of the way that all the powers are just kind of perfectly laid onto a human being, now we deal with sort of the genetic reality of having been transformed this way. That sounds kind of interesting, but then again,
how's it going to be handled?
How's it going to be handled is always the question.
Well, here's a good example, too, of the way Marvel is doing things right. Guardians of the Galaxy has a very, very different tone than, say, Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Right.
Because you're focusing on different characters, a different type of film, and that's to be respected. Like, what if they took Guardians of the Galaxy and went, we got to make Iron Man or Captain America more like Guardians of the Galaxy? It would be a disaster.
Right.
It's funny, like Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is also coming out. Again, that's done by Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
And that's why that movie is already going to be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas Fox has got a hold of this Fantastic Four film. Miles Teller's in it, who I really like that kid.
I don't know when it's going to happen, but be ready for it, and it should be an absolute delight. There will be a Marvel movie that's worse than anything you've ever seen. And I say that as a guy who reads comics, and I can't wait. Because
it might be Ant-Man.
It could be Ant-Man. If it is, that's a disappointment because I want it to be something bigger. Because as a fan of Marvel is an amazing, like Marvel and DC, as a comic nerd, Marvel just like every 10 years, they do something insane that nobody thinks is a good idea and that almost ruins their business. But it's because they're such creative people that when they make their mistake, it's from a creative standpoint and it's almost admirable in a way. Mm-hmm. Like in the comics, there was this whole thing that pissed Spider-Man fans off to no end, which was are you familiar with the Spider-Man clone saga?
Yeah.
At one point, there was a clone of Spider-Man, and then that guy went off to live his life. Then Marvel declared they'd made a mistake, and Peter Parker had actually went off. The real Peter Parker had went off because he thought he was the clone, and it enraged fans.
Oh, they retconned it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So eventually they went, it turns out we were wrong. It was Peter Parker the whole time because people were mad.
Yeah.
And there's nothing funnier than a mad comic book fan. There's just nothing funnier.
En masse.
Yeah.
All right.
Speaking as a mad comic book fan, I've been that guy.
All right, well, let's move on to I saw Kingsman.
Yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on this because I'm getting a fair amount of fan feedback or saying Chris doesn't know what he's talking about. It was great. However, the other reviewers like C.J. Johnson have agreed with me. So I wanted to get your opinion on this film.
It's funny. After doing the Mike Kaplan episode where you and Mike kind of split on it.
Yeah.
And then reading all these fans online, like I think one of the Sakame boys said they really liked it.
Yeah.
I've went into it thinking I'm probably going to disagree with Chris.
Right.
That's why I was like, I bet you I'm gonna side on I really like this. I had almost the exact reaction that you did.
Wow, that's so cool.
I went in the same thing. I went in, and the action in the beginning. I'm like, this is awesome. This is fun. I like this world. And then it just got a little slow. And I don't want to do any spoiler alert, but then there's some stuff in the very ending that's like, wow, I guess Matthew Vaughn's a real creep or whatever. Like that stuff with the princess, I was like, what is that? There's no reason to put that in here at all. I was like, this is so dumb. And I saw it in Vegas with Gary Brightwell, who I've been working with a lot recently, and he and I were both like, we both walked out like, I mean, that was fun. There was fun moments in it. I'm not going to say I hated it.
Right.
Definitely fun moments. The people who really like the film, I see why they really like it.
And it wasn't like, I wasn't on board with the whole thing. It was literally the first half or the first third. I was like, yeah, right.
Act 2 is kind of, and then Act 3 you're like.
Yeah, I felt like the movie turned on me.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
I really did. And I wish I had been more familiar with the comic so I could know, you know what I mean? Did they screw with this or something like that? And again, as we talked about, I like Matthew Vaughn. I was excited.
Love Matthew Vaughn. I mean, watch Stardust. Any of his movies.
Sure,
they're fantastic.
But just something went off the rails for me in the third act.
Couldn't agree more.
And I had this. I was fully expecting to come in here and go, Chris, you're out of your mind. That movie was great. But no, I was like, Mancini was kind of on the ball on this one. So you guys that really liked it, it's all right. Some people are dumb. No, I don't know. I get it. It is a fun film.
Yeah.
I just lost me for a little bit. So now another movie that we've talked about on the show that I have yet to see.
I still want to do a spoiler up on this one.
All right, we'll see. But Jim, you saw 50 Shades of Grey.
I did.
You have some thoughts on this movie.
Yeah, it's not a good movie. And it's not a good movie for reasons that... It's funny because it made me think about Hollywood in general. You remember the movie Eyes Wide Shut? You remember the movie Eyes Wide Shut? And Eyes Wide Shut, of course, went and looked at the seedy underworld of the
rich
sex club, and it was not sexy, right? You remember that? Remember how it was just so surprisingly not sexy? And 50 Shades of Grey it reminds me of how there are certain things that are difficult for Hollywood, and sex is one of them. Sex is one of them because to take basically a particular kind of fetish, and lots of people have fetishes. I'm very into anyone who will say yes.
That's your fetish.
Yeah, I love it.
Is a willingness to have consensual sex.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I have that fetish too.
I'll tell you what, I think I like it so much because it happens.
You guys are really out of the mainstream
I
on
know,
that.
we're living out on the edge here.
But everything in it is too pretty. That's what makes it not sexy. And I think it's difficult for Hollywood. It would be difficult for Hollywood to make a good version of this movie, although they did with Secretary. Secretary is an incredible film.
I didn't see Secretary.
They knocked it out of the park with that movie. The performances, Maggie Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, James Spader.
James Spader,
came out in 2002.
That movie is erotic in the best sense because in
a weird way, it felt more real, too.
You feel an emotional connection to these characters, which, of course, makes it more erotic because you can relate to their desire to feel fulfilled, to feel human. Whereas this movie, everybody is so beautiful. Like, you've got, our lead man has got this stomach that's, a cartoon of a man that... And they're into the
human Photoshop.
Yeah, the softest version of bondage possible. And I guess like magic movies, there's almost no discernible rules, whereas bondage is all about rules. Not just do this, but also here's where I feel safe. Like, there's so much within the lifestyle. Have either of you ever been to a sex club?
No.
Okay, I have been to a sex club. They're horrible, but they're exactly.
How many times have you been to one to verify?
Like 3. Yeah, they're fine. They're fine. There's a lot of things going into other things. It's great. But the thing about them is...
say that about a beer factory.
Yeah.
That's a very broad description.
Basically, a beer factory and a sex club are the same thing.
I say this in my act, so I'm going to call myself out because I hate it when people do this, but it's true. And I might as well say it. So here's the deal on what a real sex club is. A real sex club is your chance to have sex with ugly people. That's what a real sex club is, because that's who's going to go to a damn sex club. It isn't for pretty people. Life is a sex club for pretty people. So that's not what it is. And the movie... That's just true, right? So a movie like 50 Shades of Grey is so superficial about human sexuality. And it dawned on me that I thought I would never, I feel a way that old people used to feel, but I think for better reasons, which is I think Hollywood used to be better at depicting sex when they showed less, not because nudity isn't great, because it is great, but because since you're not good at showing how gross sex is, I don't care who's having sex, by the way, the most beautiful people in the world having sex, pretty gross. We all have to do it, we all enjoy doing it, but it's not beautiful, it's necessary. You know, it is necessary to keep me from being violent and angry with the world. It's necessary to have kids who are going to be terrible people who have sex with other people. All of that's necessary. And if you were to depict that in a film, it would be unpleasant. I get it, but that's what it would really be. Did you ever see the Make a Porno movie? What was the name of that movie?
Zack and
Miri Make a Porno.
Right.
There's one scene where he's laying on top of her and they're filming it and they're like, oh, and I'm like, exactly. That's what sex is. It's two people who are like, oh, okay, well, neither one of us are any good, but let's do this thing. Let's do this thing.
Let's go to a club.
Let's do whatever. Let's do this thing that's going to make us feel better for a little bit. And I hope you have hot water. That's all anybody ever thinks. That's all anybody ever thinks is this is great, but God, I hope you have hot water. And man, your place smells funny.
You know, everyone has different problems with that film. That's interesting.
I never heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's but here's the thing. Everyone has a different problem with 50 Shades of Grey, but here's the thing. They're all valid.
I'm sure when I see it, it's going to be like, helicopters would never fly like that.
Some of the people's problems with the movie annoy me because, like, some people's objections to the movie is they object to the way her character's treated, and I'm like, well, yeah, but that's her fetish. That's a silly objection, only because there are real people in consenting relationships. Now, if your objection is they don't realistically or accurately depict the consent, that's a legitimate, but that's a script problem. That's not a problem with the fetish itself. However people need to feel happy is how they need to feel happy. I find those to be just prude objections. And that's the problem with analyzing this film. Because if you can't be a prude and analyze it. You have to be open-minded and go, this is why it's garbage. It's not garbage because, ooh,
sex,
it
right.
can't be that. It has to be from a standpoint of cinema and like, this is poorly depicted sex. It's worse than a porn. It really is. Whereas in pornography, it's bad because it's all gynecological and you're just pointing a camera at fluid and it's awful. But this is worse because it's a lie. Everyone's beautiful and everybody is. Look,
yeah, what if he wasn't rich? Like we talked about this before. What if he was a school teacher? I want to show you my playroom.
No, thanks.
He would call the police. Or what if he worked at the hardware store with her? You know? Oh, you don't have a helicopter? No, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I'm not having weird sex with you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question.
You poor guy with a beer gut.
Yeah.
You don't win.
You can't even afford all these leather and silk. No.
And some of the
we have to do it with those pull ties again. This is ridiculous. How dare you?
I've talked to a few feminist comics about this too, because I know some women who really love the books. I know lots of women who love the books. And they also don't like the movie. So it's even a poor adaptation. So you can even go back to the question of, is this Fantastic Four movie going to be good? Well, did they honor the source material? And again, did they capture? But I wonder if it's even possible. Because it dawned on me, all the women who'd say they didn't capture it, I'm like, I don't know if you can. Because the eroticism of the written word
is a completely different thing.
And appeals to women in a particular way. And appeals to a woman's thought process. I know that's sexist, but in my defense, I'm ridiculing my gender. Because women understand a certain complexity that appeals to them in the sensual world. That I'm just like, oh, thank God you're here. That's all I think, really.
I think the main, there's many, many problems with that film, but the main thing now I'm not an expert on S&M or this lifestyle at all, but the way it's presented, I'm sure was incorrect for two very obvious reasons. One of them is, like what you're saying is, ultimately it's a fetish and it's a way for someone to receive or give pleasure.
Sure.
The whole premise of Christian Grey is that he's only this way because he was raped and abused as a child. This is why he's into this.
Right.
And the way he is getting her into it is basically blackmailing her into saying, well, you want to be with me and have these helicopter rides, this is what we're going to do. So there's never that, like, we are two people who want to explore and do this together. It's always some negative reinforcement or negative reason to actually get into that.
Go back to Secretary, because you're 100% right. Because in Secretary, it's two damaged people, and honest to goodness, isn't everybody damaged to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. And they find each other, and at the end of the movie, they're living a life that is weird compared to your norm. Right. But it's actually not weird. It's the most normal thing.
It works for them.
It is two people trying to be happy. Mm-hmm. And could there not be anything more normal than two idiots wishing they could be happy? That's amazing.
All right, I'm gonna go see this.
No, I think you got it.
Well, let's go into. I saw, and so did Jim. Saw some documentaries online.
Yeah.
There's two that I watched on Netflix. One is there's basically a PBS documentary on the actual Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid that was on Netflix. And this movie was really interesting because if you're a fan of the Newman Redford film, as I am, and I've watched that movie a bunch of times, it was really cool. And I if you like that film that came out in the 70s, I highly suggest this documentary because it will enhance that movie for you for several reasons. They get into the actual history of where these two guys grew up, and there's a lot. I'm going to bring up the Paul Newman and hold on, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance. Okay, that came out in 1969.
There's never been a better train explosion in any movie.
Oh, come on, it was great, man, and it was directed by George Roy Hill, who he had done. What else had he done? He had done. He directed some stuff on Playhouse 90, which is amazing. Like Patty Chayefsky came out of there. Rod Serling came out of those. Those are those live TV shows. He did Slaughterhouse 5. He did The Sting. So that was he did it with The World According to Garp, which I know you love. He did Slapshot, So that movie, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, is a really. I love that movie, and it's a classic piece of film. And if you have never seen it,
and oddly enough, less quirky than some of those other films.
Less quirky than some of those other films, and he really tried. There's so much accurate stuff in that movie I found out based on watching this PBS documentary on Netflix that made me go, "Wow, that was so cool."
They were both really that good looking?
No, that's the one. That's the one thing. The Sundance Kid was a nerdy looking guy from the East Coast, and I'm like, "Wow, Robert Redford." But that's more of just. And this is something Robert Redford fought in his career a lot. He was so good looking. He was such a movie star, matinee idol.
Watch his episode of The Twilight Zone, and you will fall in love.
Where he plays young Death.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It's really good.
And, but this is the thing where, that aspect of it, was actually Butch Cassidy was probably the better looking of the two in real life. But the history and where they came up, where he got his name, why he decided to call himself Butch Cassidy, how the history of the West, it was the late 1800s, and a lot of this stuff is in the actual, the George Roy Hill film, of the railroad industry was linking the East with the West, and there was money and there was mining, and they were like, no more of this Wild West shit. And that's why they hired the Pinkertons, and they got that Earl Holliman or whatever the name was in the movie. That's the actual guy that was in charge of the railroad company that was like, I don't give a shit. These guys are done. They're cutting up our profits. We don't like this. How Butch Cassidy was a genius in terms of he planned these robberies out really well. Most bank robbers were just like, hotheads who'd get a couple drinks in them and go shoot the place up and grab a couple $100 and get out of there. And he was like, and the history and the woman who's depicted in the film that was played by Catherine Ross, that's an actual character. That history knows a little bit about her, but not that much. So they had to kind of fill that in for the film. It's really fascinating. It was really interesting. And it's 45 minutes. It's not too long, but it was, if it'll enhance your view of the film so much that I highly recommend it.
That's awesome. I'll remind you that the 70s was great for film.
Oh man, it was that era that was just, and I, again, go back to the book, Easy Riders, Raging Bulls will give you even more. That's the other thing. If you've read that book, which we've mentioned on the show before, and Alan Havey has talked about it.
Maybe we'll start carrying it in the store. You mentioned it enough times.
You know what? We should. Let's just buy some copies and sell it because it's a fucking great book.
You know what? We'll look into that, actually.
Yeah.
We'll see about adding
That's a great idea because...
Add it to our book pack, too.
And this documentary... Again, not just enhances this particular film, but enhances that whole era of filmmaking that they were wanting to be this accurate, and the artistic choices they took were really well thought out and creatively served the storytelling the best.
Yeah.
And some of it is, well, we just got to fill in the blanks here because we don't know, and so we're going to do it in a cool way, not a ridiculous way. And so it was really cool. But then another movie I watched. Didn't see all of it when I was on the road, but watched part of it that Jim, you saw, which we haven't talked about, Citizen 4.
I saw it in the theater.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so what was that like? Because this movie is...
This was the actual documentary, not the...
This is the interview with Edward Snowden.
Not the Sherlock movie.
Yeah, not the Sherlock.
Yeah. It is a really interesting film. It's scary. It's certainly scary, and it reminds you what a tenuous grasp you have on whatever it is you think freedom is. It really makes you uncomfortable with, but if watch the movie enough times and you're a paranoid crazy person, because it really does just lays out the case for the fact that you maybe are being watched, and that really this, like, one of the things that the government hides behind a little bit is they'll say that, well, we're not really listening to specific conversations. We're gathering metadata, and they'll talk about that. But the reality is, yeah, except when they're not. Except when they're not, and it's really easy for them to do. And what the documentary does really well, I thought, was the documentary itself doesn't give you that opinion via... preaching. Like, there's not somebody who's selling you that by telling you what to think. They just lay out the case because the case itself is there. Yeah.
I just got paranoid and covered up the camera on my laptop because there's the scene in the movie where he's like, he's in this hotel. I think they're in Hong Kong.
Right.
And he goes, and he calls downstairs for something to the front desk, and he goes, oh, you see these VoIP phones? Yeah, we can jack into these. And he goes, everything, your cell phone, the camera on your cell phone, the camera on your laptop, we can jack into all that. We did all of that at the NSA.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's what's scary to me. Like you saying, and the government's always, wow, we got to stop terrorism, and we're just checking certain things. But if they wanted to, they could be in this room watching anything we're doing.
Yeah.
Which...
Yeah.
What a waste of their time.
Well, and...
Dean's not even here.
Yeah, Han shot first, NSA.
What's interesting, too, is, so you take the documentary and watch it in a vacuum. That's fine, and then analyze it on its own. But then put the documentary in the context of what you know, watching the news and watching press releases out of the White House, and the way they paint him, it is honestly not accurate the way that the government portrays him, which betrays even more how much they have to hide. Because they treat Snowden as if he's just this wretched criminal, and he just isn't. Is he a criminal? Well, yes, by a certain definition he is. But even within the documentary, you see how careful he was not to release information that would have compromised the lives of people actually protecting us. You see him take care not to release that kind of information. You see him, and not not a narrative. This is just footage of him going, well, I can't release this because I don't want to hurt other people. I just want so he's even careful about what he releases. And yet that's not the narrative you hear on
Is it like sensitive, like CIA, like operative information? Like
absolutely. Some of that, some that I couldn't even know because they don't release it. But some of it is like, well, okay, I should be the one. Like at one point he talks about how he should be the one sacrificed to this premise, but he's trying very hard not to take other people down with him. That's fascinating.
It was really it's an interesting and I thought well done documentary, very straightforward documentary.
Very straightforward. There's not a lot of
which I think is a smart call. The documentarian is Laura Poitras, if I'm saying that correctly. She's done a bunch of docs: Flag Wars, My Country, The Oath, and Death of a Prisoner, and now Citizen 4. So I think it was a good choice on her part to not do like I guess that pops into my head right now is The Kid Stays in the Picture, which is a great documentary, and it's a lot of, you see the director's hand, but for good reasons. Like it jazzes up that whole era, because just listening to Robert Evans talk, lockdown camera would be boring. But in this, you need to just have Snowden just talk and tell you, because you're just like, it needs to be very sort of transparent, because that's what the theme is all about.
Where did they interview him?
Hotel room.
In hotel rooms, a couple times there's a couple conversations that happen on a laptop. So they just type out the information, some on the phone, but it's a variety of hotels. And you really do get the sense of him being trapped in hotels and him being trapped in an airport and him just more or less being trapped. The latest news, I don't know if you saw this on Reuters, I think it came out yesterday. Snowden wants to come home, and all he wants guaranteed is a fair trial, which is funny. I don't know that you can get guaranteed that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's difficult to guarantee that.
What country would he be tried in?
Well, it would have to be here, right? Because that would be where the violation occurred. That would be the country who you've got a beef to settle with.
Yeah, but could he get a fair trial here? I don't know.
And I don't even blame.
And he's not a citizen. Would he get?
Oh, because he renounced his citizen. Yeah, that's right.
It's already getting murky.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that you say like
I don't even blame the people who wouldn't give him a fair trial. It's just complicated to give anybody fair anything.
Right.
Just think about giving.
He did compromise the security of this country.
Yeah, there is a criminal. Yeah,
he did. I mean, I agree.
So it's like military tribunal. What would it be?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not in the military. He worked for them. He was a contractor for the NSA, was my understanding. So he can't be tried by the military.
Is he an enemy combatant?
Yeah, well, they'd love to put him in that capacity. They'd love to have him guilty, because in the military, it's guilty before innocent.
Yeah.
So, that's real tricky.
Should probably stay where he is.
I mean, I'm glad he did what he did. I'm glad he's pulling the cover off of this stuff. But I mean, it is scary. Yeah, it's scary. But as a movie and as a documentary, it does the thing that good documentaries do, which is shows you a bunch of stuff you might not have been aware of.
And you may, in another year or so, you might have enough material for a sequel, because you don't know what's going to happen. What if this actually happens? What if he actually does go to a trial?
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah.
And if he is sent to prison, what's the backlash going to be? If he's free, what's the backlash going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be riots either way. You know what I mean? Like,
I think there's going to be something much worse than riots regarding Snowden, and it's going to be absolute apathy. I'm absolutely
well, that's the biggest problem in America.
But I guarantee you that this is apathy. Because let me ask you a question. What do you think about Miley Cyrus? Do you like Miley Cyrus?
Yeah, she's fine.
Do you like Miley Cyrus?
I don't care one way or the other.
Too many people have an opinion about Miley Cyrus. And honest to goodness, people our age that I know have a very complex opinion about Miley Cyrus. Complex. Like, I mean, if you talk to them, it's a well thought out position.
Right.
And if you talk to them about Justin Bieber, oh my God.
The Kardashians, whatever.
They're so angry. So angry. there are too many opinions about things that don't merit opinions.
Right.
And so the Snowden thing, well, will people care? It will very much depend upon if a delightful 20-something-year-old is semi-nude in a video that week. Because if she is, nobody cares about Snowden.
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, I did a documentary about a movie nobody gives a shit about, and I'm a comedian nobody knows. Who cares? Nobody fucking cares about that stuff. That was the thing. I remember so many times coming back saying, I tell people, oh, yeah, I was just doing shows in Afghanistan, and they would say one of two things. We still got troops there? This is in 04, 06, and 07. Or they'd say, oh, wow, that's so great you were in Iraq.
Really? You would get that reaction?
Constantly, dude.
No way.
That was a constant. Because it's just all America's. It's just the Middle East. And I'm like, well, Afghanistan and Iraq, two totally different situations. Yes, we're both at war. We're both technically fighting Al Qaeda, but they're very different countries with different histories.
Yeah, they're different to everyone but our former president.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, and I remember in 2012, I went to Kuwait, and people were like, oh, be careful, it's Kuwait. I go, it's Kuwait. We have bases. I mean, do you know anything like about Kuwait? It's like Qatar or like.
We have comedian friends who go to Israel and do shows,
right?
Avi Lieberman, yeah. And he, when people say, "Was it safe?" he just laughs. He's like, "There are certain areas that are a little more dangerous than others, but
like America,
yeah, although just inside of Israel,
right?"
And but he said, where we're going to be, it's like going to the mall.
Well, people said stuff like, man, the terrorist attacks and all that stuff. I go, we've had them here. New York, Boston. I mean, we've had terrorist attacks here. We had homegrown terrorists blow up a building in Oklahoma City.
Yep.
There's 30,000 handgun deaths a year. What the fuck country you think you're living in? Like, I mean, so that the apathy is what rules the day, and the media is about keeping everybody scared and focusing on whatever
for profit.
Right, scared for profit, and then keep you focused on J-Lo and Miley Cyrus and whoever's boob fell out at the Super Bowl or whatever. Like that's.
By the way, no boobs fell out.
Oh, I know. I'm so mad about that. No,
really
exactly.
Good show, actually.
It's funny. You think Citizen 4 would come out and
you had Katy Perry and moment shots. That's all you had.
Right, but you think Citizen 4 would come out and the whole country would rise up? Nope.
Yeah.
They're going to rise up about something dumb.
Yeah. Citizen 4 is a couple hippies after the movie going, oh man, let's go get some sushi and talk about this movie, which is what we did.
Right.
So we're encouraging people to see it.
See it.
Yeah.
Form an opinion. And then listen to Party in the USA. It's a great song. Yeah. Miley Cyrus. It's fun. And that's what you should do with Miley Cyrus. Just listen to her music and enjoy it. Or don't.
She's an absolute delight. She's very fun.
She's a good entertainer.
Yeah. She's
a great entertainer.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
We can go to DVDs?
Yeah, let's go to DVDs.
Okay. And now there's only one that came out right now, and that's Foxcatcher.
Which I saw.
Yes.
Good film. It's one of those Oscar movies that if it fell through the cracks for you, I would highly recommend watching it. Steve Carell does a great job. Mark Ruffalo's amazing in it.
And Channing Tatum does an amazing job, too.
And it's unfair because he gets so overshadowed because Mark Ruffalo and Steve Carell did such a great job. But Channing Tatum is a really good actor. Jupiter Ascending.
When in his elf ears, yeah. But it's just, you're watching.
Those were Vulcan ears. This is Spock.
You're watching this movie and you're realizing how great these performances are. It's also a very quiet film, so you can actually really absorb the performances. These actors are directed amazingly. They look great. Just everything from how these actors move is fascinating. The problem with this film is that as a film, it doesn't quite come together as well as it might, and that's why I think it didn't get a lot of the other nominations.
Yeah.
But it definitely deserved it for acting. There is no question. Now, because I saw it too, and one of the things I had a problem with this film is the character motivations, what the director chose to show. Like a lot of times, these characters are set up, and then they make a decision. Then a little later in the film, they change that decision, or they change it, but you never see the mechanism that makes them change their mind. And it happened too many times for it to be a coincidence. So I know it was a choice by the filmmaker. not to show those moments. Like a good example is Mark Ruffalo. He's like, well, I'm not working for him. I got my whole life for him, my whole family. And then in a scene later, he's coming in on the helicopter. Like, well, wait, what changed your mind? And the way the actors, they treat each other. Like, first they're fast friends or whatever. Then, the relationships sour or get better. And you never really see exactly what changed it. Like, what was the tipping point to make it change and go in another direction? So, but like I said, it was intentional because it happened way too many times for it to be an omission.
Right.
So I did have some problems with the actual film, but the performances were absolutely stunning. Like they were so good that you forget you're watching Channing Tatum and Steve Carell. You just think you're watching
really
those characters.
Good, man. Yeah. Just for those performances.
Yeah.
And when the story sort of has its little problems, they're minor. The problems you're talking about on its own, it's a fine film. Compared to all the big Oscar movies, that's where you got to sort of put it under the microscope. But it's well worth seeing. It's well worth seeing.
And then speaking of Channing Tatum, I got the chance to see 22 Jump Street, and this was the sequel to 21 Jump Street. And I got to tell you, it's not a great movie, but it has some really funny moments in it. And it was one of those movies that I get it. It's self-aware. It's like, they make a lot of jokes about sequels and what they were doing. And look, you got to just kind of do what you did before. That's what people want to see. You got lucky the first time. Like, it's the police captain talking to them and you realize he's really talking about the sequel.
Right.
So, which is kind of funny, but it's like, well, you are doing the same thing again. You're acknowledging it, but that doesn't change the fact that you are still doing the exact same thing again. Every time Ice Cube talks to Channing Tatum and calls him a dumb motherfucker, I'm on the floor. It's so funny. And Ice Cube
that's all I want to do is yell at people.
He's like, no, you dumb motherfucker. And there's scenes with Ice Cube, and he actually steals the movie. Like, he's worth seeing this movie for. Just to see him yell at people and just act like a crazy person. Like, he just loses it. It's so funny. Like, Audrey and I watched it, and then we were actually talking about it the next day, how funny those scenes were with Ice Cube. So, they do some funny things, like they really, play with the convention of sequels and how many more are they going to make. And, so I can't imagine there's going to be another one. There's no way they could make another one, but it's more exciting and interesting and funny to actually with the scenes with Ice Cube than it is to actually watch Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. They're good, but they're nowhere near as funny as when Ice Cube is screaming at them.
That's awesome.
So definitely check it out.
All right,
it's a good movie to watch at home with a fast forward.
There you go.
It is.
All right, coming out this week, Chappie. I'm excited to see this film.
Okay, well, you like Short Circuit.
I like Short Circuit too, really. That's going to be in the next Comedy Film Nerds book.
Yeah.
Here's why. Obviously, it's with, it's directed by Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9, and it's got...
Elysium.
Yeah. Sharlto Copley. It looks like this is kind of going back to the heavy social commentary that he was successful with District 9.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, Elysium was definitely a big fail.
I really look at this movie as because you can't really tell too much from the trailer. What direction is this movie going to go in? Is it going to go heavy social commentary, some really cool exploration between humans and artificial intelligence, or is it going to be, like I said, Short Circuit?
My God, I hope it's not Short Circuit. Here's what I think, because some of the things I've seen, I've seen two trailers now for it, I believe, and it seems like it's getting into this, which kind of touches on Citizen4 a little bit, because he talks a lot about this, is the drones. That's a big thing that we should be talking about in this country, and how you can just fly in and bomb or whatever, and they're kind of touching on that with this, because these are mechanicalized cops. These are like robot police.
Well, you can go all the way back to RoboCop.
Yeah.
When you look at, with
the misuse of power and all that stuff. So I think it might, and Hugh Jackman in a mullet, I think it's worth the price of admission right there. So I really want to see this movie. I'm excited to see it. So
I hope you're right, because this is one of those movies I want to be good.
You want it to be good.
Yeah, I want it to be good because I'm a big fan of the filmmaker. I love metaphorical science fiction. Mm-hmm. So, I'm rooting for this movie.
And the not too distant future, I'm excited about, because can already sort of see it happening. It's not like 100 years where you go, wow, how did we get from here to there? There's none of those questions. It's just sort of you're like, yeah, that's right around the corner, man. So, and then of course coming out is the second best exotic Marigold Hotel.
That looks amazing.
First one was fine. I think this will be I think it's actually a good sequel.
CJ Johnson sent us a review. We're having some issues with the site right now again, but we will be getting that review up very shortly. But he pretty much said what you were saying. Like you can check out the review, but basically this sequel was not necessary, but it doesn't do anything wrong. It's it's fun, and if you like the first one, you're going to enjoy the second one.
All right. Site Spotlight. What do we got? Neil
actually did a great Oscar wrap up on the site. You can check that out. There's a couple really good articles. There's a really good. If you haven't already, you really got to check out Jackie Kashian's article on superheroes and the movies, and also because she really gets in like kind of the meaning and philosophy a little bit, and it's a really great article. So you really want to check it out. And she gets into some heady topics that you wouldn't expect for talking about superheroes and movies. So it's a good article.
She's the one to write that.
It's pretty awesome.
Got a cool tweet from @YvesTheSteve, YVESTHESTEVE. He goes, Graham, have you seen the trailer for The Gunman? And if so, please give me your thoughts. #No judgment. So, this is the new Sean Penn movie.
Right.
Which just basically looks like, oh, I've been in Haiti for too long. I got some bills to pay. So I'm going to go do a Taken.
Yeah, or a Bourne Identity.
I'm going to do a Bourne Taken identity and go it's Sean Penn running around the world kicking ass because he's a CIA guy, went off the reservation or some shit, and he's got to settle
Special ops.
Sure, yeah. Settle some scores.
Wouldn't he be retired Special Ops by now?
Is he over the hill? Was he in too deep? Is he wound too tight? Or is he's coming back for one last gig? I don't know.
Maybe it's all of those things.
I don't care. Here's why. Sean Penn, I can't think of off the top of my head. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't think of any movie that he phoned in. He always brings it, and this is clearly just a money grab.
Even the remake of Secret Life of Walter Mitty, he didn't phone it in there.
No way, and he had a small part in that.
Yeah, but he lit up the screen.
And he lit up the screen, and he was so intense in that film that I feel like he saw the script and went, okay, yeah, shoot him up, bang, bang, travel the world, guys with ponytails with one name, Mikhail, he's the bad guy, or whatever. There's a couple of those.
Yeah.
There's going to be a train at some point.
Sure, he's got to jump from car to car and a bridge in the car, and something's going to blow up, but if this, like we talk about, like Liam Neeson has got another one of these taken gun guys or whatever. If this is what
Run All Night, is that the
next Run All Night. Yeah, that's the new one.
I kind of like the plot of Run All Night from the trailer because I like the idea that the other guy wants to kill his son because Liam Neeson killed his son.
Yeah.
So they're both Liam Neeson.
Right, and Ed Harris.
I kind of like that.
Ed Harris is a bad guy I love, but getting specifically to the gunman, Steve @YvesTheSteve, I'm excited. If this was starring anybody else, I'd be like, no way. But Sean Penn,
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson or now Sean. I want to see Sean Penn play this kind of a just cliche, catchphrase gun guy.
I wonder if Eddie Redmayne will get one of these.
Yeah, or probably it's in the can, and he said, "Fuck that shit." After Jupiter Ascending, put that thing on lockdown. So I want to see this, and I think it could be just the right amount of fun stupidity, like the Taken movies have been,
right?
With just cliches and exposition, but still just awesome. Like, because here's the thing that you're going to get from Sean Penn: when there is a scene where he's got to say some like one-on-one stuff, it's going to be kind of awesome. So that's what I'm excited to see. So
all right.
That's
fair enough.
Feedback. All right, guys. Well, that's episode 258. Put it in the books.
In the can.
Can it. Jim, where can people find you online, your podcasts?
Well, it's Who's This Now on Twitter. You can find us on Libsyn, iTunes. Who's This Now? It's a funny little show. My producer is Tom Griffin, who's a very funny man. Tom Griffin is a very funny man, but he does not like the outside world. So you can enjoy him on our podcast and nowhere else. You can see me doing stand-up.
He's a bit agoraphobic?
No, he just knows better. I just think, no, not at all. It's just, he's just very content, I think. I don't know. I never know how to read him. I just know I like him. He's a funny man, and he helps me write the show. And he helps me, we have this little world that's evolving. What I'm liking about the show the most is how it just kind of evolves into this little world where we just have a very big staff. We have a huge staff over there at the studios. We're in the beautiful Culver City mega studios now, and it's really impressive. So
right by Sony.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right by Sony. Well, they're dwarfing Sony.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if people want to just follow you to see you perform, where would they do that?
Follow me on Twitter, Comic Jim Bruce, or you can follow me, jimbrucecomedy.com. You can actually also buy my comedy DVD.
Nice.
I have a comedy DVD, Jim Bruce, I'm Dying as Fast as I Can.
And that was recorded at the West Side Comedy Theater in Santa Monica?
It was, yeah. It's very autobiographical, so if you want to hear more stuff about women who've made bad decisions with me, that's the place to go.
I loved it because you showed it to me, and I've known you for a long time, and it is such a pure version of who you are. I don't want to spoil anything, but something kind of happens, and the way it happens and how you deal with it is so you in the best sense. And I love your writing, and I love your point of view and everything. So,
thank you.
So check that out, you guys. It's a funny thing.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, that's our program, you guys. I will be this Friday doing a show at an Air Force base in Great Falls, Montana.
If it doesn't get snowed out.
It doesn't get snowed out. I think they can handle snow removal in Montana a little better than Oklahoma and Texas. I think they get a couple storms a year up there.
And they've got a few plows.
They might have one or two laying around.
One or two militias who could help out.
Yeah, we've got some militia guys to square some things up.
They can shoot the snow out of your way.
Oh, get her done. So we're doing that with Gary Brightwell and Danny Villalpando, and I think one other person. So check that out, you guys, if you're in the Air Force and you're in Montana, and visit our store and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, we've got a lot of good stuff. In fact, the limited Dana Gould CD DVD pack is actually almost gone. We only have a few of those left, so. If you want one of those, definitely it's time to get it. And don't forget we have the Hit Clown and the Hello Junkie shirts on sale right now, so definitely check those out. They are limited editions. Once they go, they will be gone. Yeah, so we slashed the prices just to make some room here in the garage. Yeah, we need more room for Dana Gould stuff, so check out everything's discounted, and the Hello Junkie shirts are actually long sleeve. They're nice. The store works. The message boards and everything are screwed up. Yeah, the store works great. It's on a different system. Thank God. Well, listen, the internet can use fewer message boards. We're still having some issues with the message boards. I wish there was a place where more idiots could say that. All right. Well, thank you once again to our guest, Jim Bruce. My name is Graham Elwood. And I'm Chris Mancini. As always, remember, Han shot first.